The full electrification of the automotive industry is inevitable, but it's obvious that the government is pushing too hard by imposing strict emission standards and insisting on the plan to make two-thirds of new cars sold all-electric by 2032. On the other hand, car makers are running out of fresh capital for future projects and can't make EVs more affordable. Well, the current administration doesn't do enough to make ownership of EVs easier. Could this be officially the worst time ever to buy an EV? We found 5 reasons that say so. Number 5. EVs are too expensive. New technology in general is expensive, but gets cheaper over time. The only problem with EVs is that they were expected to become affordable by now, which obviously didn't happen. They're still way more expensive than their gas-powered counterparts, despite the fact that the cost of batteries, which are the most expensive part of electric vehicles, went down by 80% in the last 10 years. The most indicative examples are nameplates that are available both in electric and internal combustion variants. For example, there's the Chevy Blazer, a midsize 2-row crossover, with a starting price of around $35,000. However, if you decide on an all-electric version, which was launched a couple of months ago, the cheapest Blazer costs nearly $57,000. So even with pretty generous incentives, such as a $7,500 federal tax credit, EVs don't seem like an adequate alternative, especially not for lower-income households. The problem is that pretty much all automakers had early adopters in mind when they were designing their first EV models. Early adopters come from different social groups, but they all have one thing in common: they come from wealthy households. So initial EVs were designed to be luxurious, with exceptional acceleration and overall performance, and logically with a hefty price tag. On average, the amount paid for an EV was around $53,000 in 2023. That's 10% higher compared to the average purchase of all cars, no matter the powertrain, and nearly $122,000 more compared to what was the average price paid for a new gas-powered car. Number 5. Depreciation. For most of us, buying a new car is the second biggest investment in a lifetime, right after a house or apartment purchase. Logically, we want that investment to pay off, and that's where the depreciation rate plays an important role, along with reliability. Running costs. Number 4. Interest rates and insurance cost. The cost of ownership is extremely high with EVs. Not only is that MSRPs are much higher, but the car loans banks are offering are characterized by very high interest rates, usually justified by the ongoing inflation. The interest rates are currently way over 6%, which is a massive jump when compared to just a couple of years ago, when the average interest rates were around 4%. As a result, the investment called the purchase of an EV is much higher than customers were hoping for, with monthly installments being $277 higher compared to gas car loans on average. Another reason why we believe that this is the worst time to buy an EV is the cost of insurance. Namely, the insurance premiums are significantly higher in the case of EVs and can sometimes measure in thousands of dollars. The reasons are various, but the biggest one is probably the fact that electric cars are more expensive to repair than their IC counterparts. Despite having fewer parts, some of the parts like batteries are extremely expensive, with replacement costs that sometimes go way beyond $10,000. Moreover, safety protocols are much stricter, which only adds up to repair bills. Finally, there aren't many repair shops with technicians who are trained to fix electric vehicles, like in the case of gassed vehicles. That also impacts repair costs. So such a high insurance cost definitely comes with a good reason. Number 3. Low reliability. Score and repair costs. In theory, electric cars should be way more reliable than internal combustion cars. Simply, they feature fewer parts, with the drying department consisting just of the battery and electric motors. However, despite the fewer number of parts that could break, reality says that electric cars are 80% less reliable than gas-powered cars. In other words, we still haven't made it to the point where the new technology is polished enough to work as expected in practice. It still needs time, and until that happens, buying any just doesn't make sense. Reliability issues are numerous, but it mostly comes down to software. Pretty much every EV has problems with the battery and charging, while reliance on touch-sensitive controls doesn't help either. Namely, the most common issues are those in terms of the infotainment system, while we could also find reports about drive assist and safety systems not working properly. And as we've just mentioned, EVs are characterized by notably higher repair costs compared to gas-powered cars. Even under war, you may expect troubles, because there aren't many dealers around with trained professionals who can solve these software issues. It's not a rare case to hear stories from owners about their EVs being trapped at dealer shops for weeks because no one knows how to solve the issue. That's exactly what's happening right now at numerous GM dealer shops. because technicians don't know how to solve numerous software problems that have been reported in new electric cars, like the Cadillac Lyriq and Chevy Blazer EV, with the latter even facing production stop due to numerous complaints and Chevy's inability to solve these issues. Number 2. Battery replacement. Cost anxiety. Electric cars produce different kinds of anxiety starting from range and recharging worries. However, there's one more which refers to the potential battery replacement. Like any other car part, batteries have a limited lifespan. They usually last between 10 to 15 years. And once the capacity goes below 70% of the original, it's time for replacement. Sometimes it can be covered by warranty, but most manufacturers give between 8 and 10 years or 100,000 no, which means that at some point the owner will have to replace them at his own cost. That wouldn't be a problem if the battery isn't the most expensive part of the EV. The actual cost depends on the battery and the car model, and it can go between $4,000 and $20,000. In any case, be prepared to invest thousands of dollars. This brings us back to the part of the video when we were talking about the price depreciation. This potential repair is probably the key reason why electric cars depreciate at such a high rate. The used EV market almost doesn't exist because there aren't many people who are ready to buy a 7 or 10-year-old car with such expensive potential repairs. Number 1. Range and charging anxiety. Although we've seen a significant technological leap over the last decade, electric cars still can compete with gas-powered vehicles in many aspects. One of them is autonomy, the cause of the biggest anxiety related to electric cars. Namely, although there are a few EVs that are quite impressive in this aspect, like the Lucid Air or Tesla models, those are high-end luxury cars. On the more mainstream spectrum of the EV market, things are notably different, as most cars can't make more than 300 mph on a single charge. That's way below the average autonomy of a gas-powered or hybrid car. But that's just one side of the problem. The other one is recharging, namely the charging infrastructure is still not ready for massive electrification in cities. You may find enough of them, but things are way more problematic in rural areas, where owners have to plan their recharging sessions carefully. Also, despite the fact that modern electric cars offer quite impressive rates, recharging is still way more time-consuming compared to refueling a gas tank. Are still far from being convenient, while charging at public stations can sometimes cost as much as gasoline. So we can all agree that it's still too early for an average car driver to step into this kind of transition. One of the alternatives is to charge your EV at home overnight. In that case, you would need to purchase additional equipment, which means additional cost, but only in the case you live in a house and have a garage, which is not the case with millions of Americans. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.